So we've got Pawn driving things behind the scenes, and Pawn, we do this with every update show with the new god. Go ahead and just give us a run through the abilities and show her what she's all about.
Oh, the pull. Quick combos,
Gosh.
And a dash combo. And a knockup? Was that the ultimate? Yeah, that's the ultimate, okay.
Oh my goodness. So
and the wall pull, so they max out.
There we go.
Looks like it's one of them CC as well.
Nice.
Agile, impactful warrior.
Right? Nice. And I'm seeing some stuff going on with the ability icons here.
Yeah,
but
the abilities are leveling up right now.
To her passive, and it's something that we've never done before. And Clumsy, let's kind of go ahead and start breaking things down. Her passive is called Training Arc. Tell me about Training Arc.
So Mulan's got a very interesting gameplay hook.
Oh, you can see that actually.
Not really incorporated just
the passive meters,
but she uses 3 different weapons for each one of her abilities. So for her first ability, she's going to be using her sword. For her second ability, she uses her spear, and for her third, she's going to be using her bow. As she uses each one by damaging enemy gods, and as well as minions for a lesser amount, she gains skill towards them. So she can actually start gaining different ability enhancements while she gains different mastery of her weapons. And we can see that in when Pawn's going to be getting the passive meter right there. You can see the XP for each different one. And as Mulan continues training, she starts gaining these different ability effects.
I think you're glitched.
Nice. So it's almost like a mini game while you're playing the actual game, right?
Right, exactly.
It's a pretty common game mechanic. You know, people experience this type of thing in MMOs and other games like RPGs.
RPGs.
The more you use a skill, the better you get at it. And this is symbolic of the character and the kind of the themes of humanity and determination and practice and becoming a hero. And it also kind of gives each
I don't know what these values
the
are.
sense
Must be
of
filler values.
rise to godliness, divinity when you play each match. So Mulan not just ranks up her abilities as normal, but she also skills up her abilities. And then by the end of the match, you feel so powerful and you have all these new skills and new tricks you can do with the kit. It's a really cool thing. And the whole kit is designed to make this system feel really cool.
Yep. So her abilities still have the 5 normal ranks, but how many skills in her passive per each ability?
So there's 3 different evolutions for her base 3 skills.
Cool. Awesome. So let's go ahead and get right into ability 1, Cross Strike. This is
there was something else. There was another
right?
component, a CDI component.
So we're going to start from right back at the beginning. Cross Strike, Mulan swings her sword in a 180 arc from her right, and then another one from right to left, hitting everyone inside that area and anyone inside the cone in the middle twice.
I always like to take the time to commend the designers like Pawn and Clumsy on finding even more unique skill shot areas and timings.
Right.
SMITE has
brand new targeter.
Harder and harder. So this is really cool with an overlapping center area, but still with a large bit of space on the sides. And one thing to note, her passive meter, the switch class function, which we use on the update show, does seem to break that. You can see the sword meter has filled up a little bit, and the spear has like a tiny little bit.
I don't get the gray turret.
When you're playing, you'll see that changing in real time. It feels really good. Unfortunately, we can't show it because we've been switching class all day, so it does break that.
But as you can see, Pawn's already gone through 2 different
still hit
evolutions.
in the gray targeting area with both, it seems.
He's used the ability 1, Cross Strike, a few times, and the first evolution you get is an attack speed buff. And then once you get to a second point, once you get to Adept is what we're calling it, you get actually a 3rd swing of Cross Strike.
Oh, that's the gray
you
one.
start with the first 2, and then once you get to Adept, you actually get a 3rd strike and a larger cone in front of you.
Ah, okay,
and then finally, once you get the 3rd evolution, you just get a permanent attack speed buff.
A longer cone, yeah.
Permanent?
You'll see
wow, nice.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to see that theme for all of our abilities. So the first, when you get to skilled, you're going to just get a small enhancement to each one of your abilities. Once you get to the second, you get to adept. You then make that ability go into a bigger evolution where you actually get a new component. And then finally, when you get to mastered, you get some sort of permanent buff.
Okay, temporary 25%, but permanent 5%. So it's not the same buff. Don't worry.
It has a lot of historic inspiration. So do her weapons. This one designed around the straight sword. Anything you'd like to add about the visuals there?
Yeah, we focus on the Northern Way armor and the weapons as much as we could. There's not a whole lot of information on that, unfortunately, because it's such a long time ago, but we try to say as much as possible.
This sword, though, in particular, is very popular through a lot of those Chinese dynasties.
It's
looked AoE
there
for a second.
Common shape of sword.
Right. So Mulan featuring that before she moves to her next weapon and therefore her next ability.
Exactly. Spear Thrust. What's going on with Spear Thrust, Clumsy?
So Spear Thrust at first is just a really simple, extremely short-range spear attack. It does a slow on enemies as well. And then once you get it to its first evolution, once you get it to skilled, it then heals you for up to 3 targets hit.
You see the little level up?
Oh, wow.
She gets inside of her skill up, she gets little effects. Kind of reminds you like a level up effects.
Yep, so you can see 3 heals max once you get to skill, which is the first evolution. And then once you use this ability enough times, it evolves again, and you get to adept.
Kind of like tier.
And her abilities do skill up off of minions and gods, but you get significantly more skill for hitting gods.
And like AJ mentioned, the passive meters due to our switch class constantly may not be entirely accurate. In game, you're going to see it properly. So now you're at the second evolution, you're at adept, and she does a second spear thrust after the first, which is at a much longer range.
But
the
doesn't
damage
heal.
is equivalent for both hits, but if you hit the same target twice, you actually get bonus damage on that target. So you're incentivized to hit the same target multiple times.
Colin, can we see that targeter just away from the enemy targets real quick? Yeah, you see the extra. Yeah, that's the extra bit that was added, and you'll see actually after you fire it, you get that extra targeter to help you.
And on the first ability as well, you have a similar kind of treatment once it's
Can you
evolved, so
move
see
while
a
you use
second targeting portion to dictate where that third cone hit will be.
And this spear is a very iconic look for Chinese history as well, known for its red ribbon or tassels tied just below the blade.
Cool. All right, so that was spear thrust. We're gonna move right along here to grapple.
Attack speed slow.
When Pon was doing his run through, I saw some bits there
I think
that
we got
were pretty interesting there.
So grapple's Mulan's third ability and therefore her third weapon. She's going to be firing her bow, and that bow has an arrow with a rope attached to it. If you hit an enemy, or if you miss, nothing happens. You're just rooted for a little while. You know, it's a whiff. But if you hit an enemy, you and the enemy actually come together in the middle, and Mulan does an attack with her sword as she reaches that enemy. So you kind of bring, you know, it's this gap close. It's this little bit of CC that she has in her kit. She's actually not got that much mobility as well.
CC immunity during it?
In a second. Once you get that first evolution, which we see here, you actually get a protections buff, which is that aura you see around Mulan.
Let's engage.
Yep. You grapple in, you have this little protection buff with that sets you up nicely for the rest of your abilities.
Okay, it's not like Sylph Pull
at the second evolution, Adept, you can now see the icon has changed again, and Mulan can now use it to
you meet in the middle.
grapple to the walls.
Nice.
All right, there we go. No protection buff though.
Something that the players have been asking for a long time.
No CC immunity either.
It's pretty interesting here. You can do a lot of cool stuff with it to juke abilities. And we added an extra bit of targeting feedback here so you can tell when you're going to hit the wall.
Yeah. If you
Overall,
don't
it's
see that
stronger when you
there,
start God's
you're
Fight
not gonna be hitting. So definitely wait for that before you try and grapple to the wall. Also, there's a little bit of a delay when she's firing her bow, so you have to be careful. You know, you're using this in situations where you're not going to still get a lot of burst damage because you're going to be locked down and you're not going to be able to get away that easily.
Just being able to pull in enemies is a very strong effect. I think that's going to make Mulan an asset on many team comps.
Right.
And then the ability to use it to walls just gives her a little bit of extra flexibility, and we're always exploring, trying to find new ways for mobility of our characters instead of just dashes and leaps, which also just tend to be very powerful. So this takes a lot more planning, a little more skill, and more execution to actually use effectively.
Right. We didn't talk about it on Spear Thrust as well, but just like we mentioned for the first ability at the third mastered level, Spear Thrust gives you 5% power, and for grapple you get 5% permanent movement speed. So in total, that's attack speed, movement speed, and power you get for mastering all 3 of her weapons.
Nice, and that's 5% for each of those.
Yep, exactly.
Nice. Still got the ultimate, but as we kind of talked about the abilities, what are kind of your play styles that you're thinking for Mulan?
Well, so one thing that we noticed immediately while playtesting her is that while she's definitely a pretty big brawler, AJ said it at the beginning, where she kind of mixes between being a warrior and an assassin almost, it's really that range you have to be careful about. So both of her abilities have a lot of damage up front, but not a lot of range. So in the solo lane, if you're going to be boxing, you need to be very careful that you get that entire minion wave, you hit the enemy god, but as soon as it comes time to back off, you play it very safe, because a lot of other solo laners have a way of hitting you outside of the range of your abilities. So go in, get your damage off, and then probably back off and play a little bit safe. Exactly. Until you hit late game when you start getting your things evolved, and then you just want to keep going and use that benefit of all the different abilities that have evolved.
Yes. I really like her agility, the way her animations have these multiple strikes. I think it fits really well with her visual theming.
I agree.
It feels like it just fits her so much better than some big, heavy single hit. Any additional thoughts on that, y'all? Her animations and her style, her fighting style?
I think her fighting style, it makes you think of the Chinese historical action dramas, which is really cool. What's it in English? Hidden Tiger. Wait.
Crouching Tiger.
Yeah, that one. So there's a lot of swooshy things. There's a lot. Then that's why her clothing was designed to have these long tabards, especially in the back, so you can actually see them moving, and it's very agile. It's very airy, and also in the embroideries on her cloth, and that's why a lot of motifs are the clouds and the wind. It kind of like also ties into her femininity, but at the same time, it's not just like addressed.
Right. Yeah. One thing I noticed that her moves are very much airy, but there's also like a lot of finesse in her movement, which kind of calls back to her being a soldier on the front line, right? All of her moves need to be efficient and do what they really
She's very
need to do.
precise. She's, used that battlefield's knowledge she's gained. She's bringing that to this battlefield of the gods now.
Cool. Awesome. And I just got word that we were ready to go back in game and check out her ultimate ability, Divine Mastery. Clumsy, what does this ultimate do?
So, I mean, she's used all 3 of her different weapons in her kit. So for her ultimate, she's got to use all 3 of her different weapons. So if you hit an enemy, we'll talk about that in a second. First, you start with a sword dash. So you're going to be hitting everyone in that targeting area right there. And if you hit them, you root them. And as you finish that, you go into your spear hit and then your bow's arrow hit. So breaking that down for a second, you've got a sword dash that roots enemies, and then you go right into a spear knockup into just a damaging arrow projectile.
And now since we've restarted the game, you can see that passive meter working as intended. You can see how good it feels to see those little skill ups with every hit. So using the ultimate can actually skill up all 3 weapons.
Yeah, that's one thing I
by a lot.
Hit.
Oh wait, because I love gods.
Since we're at level 20 here, every ability has been leveled up and ranked up, so the damage is pretty high. You're hitting multiple targets. We do expect a pretty good time investment. I mean, it wouldn't be a training arc if you got all of your abilities leveled up within 5 minutes. So for different game modes and for different situations, you're gonna have very different timings for your abilities to level up. But we would expect, it's pretty quick within the first few waves for the first evolutions, and then maybe another 8 to 10 minutes or 5 to 10 minutes for the next.
I can see why they said she can jungle well as well.
So his ultimate is very powerful for engaging or disrupting.
Ganks are pretty good with their pull.
A lot of CC and mobility through it with the root into the knockup. You have full player control over each hit. So we are aiming, kind of in a 180 here, but you can see Pawn here, he can hit these targets in any order he wants. And the only qualifier is that you have to hit someone with the first sword slash, right? So if you just use it to escape,
you get no benefit.
You don't get the follow-up.
Not only that, but you're also rooted at the end of the post spiral for a little bit, because if you notice, after you use this dash, you are actually stuck in place. So this is the time for if enemies want to position around you. She's got a lot of CC in this, so you have to be careful, and she is CC immune. But she is not actually as mobile after she uses her dash.
Cool.
It's actually really cool escape as well between that
weapons, and then the 3 different weapons and the training all come together here in the ultimate.
And boy, does she use all 3 of those weapons a whole lot.
So actually, at the beginning, we talked about her training arc.
Oh, there is an AoE cleave, yeah.
That while that's her gameplay hook, she actually has an additional passive on top of that.
Oh, nice.
Because that's kind of
great point.
Yeah, the training arc is what she's doing throughout the battle.
This is common feedback we get from our players too. If like the kit has a passive theme to it, then the god still doesn't have a passive. That tends to frustrate players. So.
But that's because of the gameplay hook being a pretty big deal for her kit, the passive is pretty simple and just helps exacerbate, just helps edge it on a little bit. And what it is that every 10 seconds you get a buff, which reduces the cooldown for all of your for the next non-ultimate ability you use by 2 seconds. So what you really want to do is make sure you're keeping an eye when you have the buff active, and then choose which ability you kind of want to emphasize a little more to evolve.
Cool. So you can just min-max the way you want to pass your skills.
And I think it's a pretty big deal. In a lot of our playtests, when we have some high-level players in there and they're using their abilities non-stop and just basically using it off of cooldown. But if you just wait a second and choose to use your spear thrust before you use your cross strike, you can start evolving it much more quickly without you even realizing it.
It's a fun additional min-max you can do in the solo lane.
I will say as well, since we're getting on that subject, choosing which ability to order is going to be a pretty big deal for Mulan, because obviously the attack speed increase you get for the first evolution of Cross Strike versus the heal for the Spear Thrust is a pretty intimidating choice, especially when you consider that the Spear Thrust range is really short, so you're most likely not going to hit the entire wave.
But it also has the sustain, which can be important. So the rank up order for her has been hotly debated, even internally, if it's the 1 or the 2, or I think Ponpon's been min-maxing her to like 1 point in the 1 and then 2 to 3 points in the 2, and then you go back to the 1. Or
that usually helps you get that clear ability.
But it depends on the matchup.
Yes, for sure.
It's crazy.
Well, I'm sure that once the community gets their hands on it,
the cleave also does more damage.
They'll give us the exact correct way to play Mulan. So now that we've seen kind of how she fights, we've got the voice pack ready. Can we kind of go through some lines?
Yes. Attack. Defend the middle lane. Gank right lane. Attack the Titan. Defend. Retreat. Wow, wow.
And she uses some Chinese throughout the kit as well, right?
Yes, exactly. You'll hear her use some of that throughout her abilities as well as some of her VGS lines.
Especially in her abilities.
Definitely. Yeah, so that was base Mulan, and we kind of saw the recolors a little bit earlier, but we've got the first recolor up here for you guys, Rising Hero Mulan, which is probably my favorite out of the bunch. I'm just a big sucker for green. It's like my favorite color.
Ooh, I don't know. There's another one that I really like.
And then we've got the next one up is Ascended. This is the Mastery skin for Mulan, actually. This is the Mastery card art, and this is probably my favorite card art from the group here.
I like the different angles you get for these. Each one of them are coming from a different point perspective. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and then actually there's one more recolor for Mulan,
a new one,
Ascended Mulan, and it is actually the limited reward from the Season Pass 2020.
It's purple.
Purple.
It's
nice.
really nice.
I really like that one.
It's really nice. Yeah, I really.
I
love green too, so it's a tough call. But yeah, if you have that Season Pass, you will have access to the purple colored outfit for her, and it is really cool.